Series 11 is a significant milestone in the history of PCA sim racing, marking the 5th anniversary of the league. These races have grown from less than 50 drivers in Series 1 to nearly 270 drivers in Series 10. Likely, this latest series will continue to see the same sort of explosive growth. Series 11 will host 7 events, all at a different track. Each of the 5 PCA sim racing classes, Entry, Challenge, Sport, Club, and Pro, will have 40-minute races. After a poll among the Series 10 drivers, we'll see a return for full course yellows, stronger opening lap penalties, and a mix of fixed and open setups per class. So let's kick off the celebrations as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 11 Sport Class live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is DJ Clark. Cameron Avedon is on social media, and Ryan Bauer is producing while using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. DJ, we are back again here tonight at Spa. As we saw last night, this is a place that almost never fails to put on a good show.
Exactly, Joe. Overtaking opportunities aplenty from going down into La Source to Lake Calm, and we've seen some moves get done down into Fagnes and, of course, down into the bus stop chicane itself. But the real area of contention, the area to watch out for that we saw last night, that is turn 17. Blanchiment on this circuit. Even the merest little mistake on entry or exit, and we saw plenty of drivers getting it wrong and ending up in the wall there.
That could be critical during today's race, so keep an eye on that one, because we could see some drivers find themselves, as DJ said, with severe damage, unfortunately. They are in the midst of qualifying right now for this race, so they have the first of the few laps in. In fact, I see about two-thirds of the field having set an official time, but they only have 3 minutes left, as Carl Boccieri, who's going to be hard to miss, certainly, comes out of Fagnes and into Stavolo.
I absolutely love that paint scheme for Carl. But the other thing we've got to watch out for is you saw the run down the hill there into Stavolo. The sun rising up there at this point. It's going to be a little bit hard to see, I think, at certain points on the track. We didn't talk about that a whole lot yesterday. Excuse me, the sun is setting. I know how to read a clock correctly. Sun is setting here as it's just about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, but it is set to December 4th in Sim, so a very short day here in the Ardennes Forest.
Yeah, we saw last night that the cars will actually have their headlights automatically come on by the end of the race. The sun is going down so early. Krutzler, who sits in 6th place right now, has about a half a second to make up to, well, what is now Dirksen there, who has taken the pole away from Yokel, and Finch has jumped up onto the front row. Only half a tenth off the pole time. It is tight at the top of the field, with the top 4 separated by barely more than a tenth of a second. Krutzler's going to try and get into that as he's been shuffled down into 11th, but he doesn't go quicker. It's a 2:20.1. He has just enough time to set a third and final lap.
Yeah, just enough time to try to get that together here at this point. Let's see if he's going to be able to do it. He's going to have just enough time, I think. Actually, it's going to be close here on the run. His lap times are at 2:19 at this point. Here is Greg Blauen right now working his way down through La Source. Blauen finds himself down in the order in 27th. That's going to be a little bit difficult to try to recover from, I think, Joe. Not only because he's got to jump his way through the cars here at this point, but as we saw, if there's a big stack up in front of him, yes, this is a wide circuit, but we've seen some pretty hefty carnage, particularly down the Kemmel Straight.
That's true. Yeah, if someone has an accident over the top of the crest, it's blind, it's hard to see, and you can come upon a pretty big mess at the start. But this series is honestly known for its cleaner starts, so drivers will be wary that hopefully won't have a big pileup as the 556 comes through Lacombe and heads back down the hill from the highest part of the track now into Rivage. I'm watching to see who else is coming across the line here. McNeil just set his final timed lap, as they are not allowed to complete hot laps here. Once that clock hits 0, they're going to switch over to the race session and start gridding up. This is Neville, though, who sits in 4th position. His second lap got deleted, with the off-track stealing what is likely a number of laps here in qualifying. It's going to be important that he gets this last one right.
Yeah, he's got to absolutely get this right. And remember here, for veterans of the iRacing service, track limit violations not as bad as they used to be at Spa, but can still come back to bite you. Ooh, looks like a little bit of a problem there for Neville's connection, and that may blink him out, and that may mean he's not going to be able to finish that lap.
I don't see an official word from the sim that he's been disconnected yet, but yeah, I don't think that lap will be counted with him being gone so long. Carbone crosses and his final lap does not count. Jason Finch, though, also has his last lap deleted, so his second and only lap that he counted is good enough for P2. What could have been with his other 2 laps?
Yeah, exactly. As there it is. Looks like everything's about to wrap up here for qualifying, and it sounds like we're ready to roll through the grid at Spa.
Indeed, Derek Dirksen takes the pole by 0.06 of a second over Jason Finch, and Kevin Yokel will start in the 3rd spot. Then it is Robert Neville starting P4 with Russell Elizondo in 5th position. Curtis Crummell starts in the 6th spot, and Nick Whitehill will be 7th. John Gibson begins P8 with the inside of row 5 seeing Ken Eskridge and Christopher Costas on the outside in 10th.
Moving back into 11th place, it's James Martin, followed by Steve Komatz. David Krutzler and Mark Lacombe going to line up behind them. Anthony Carbone rolls off in 15th, followed by Ward Preston. Then it's Rex Jarwala in P17. Patrick Hill, 18th. Mike Sachs, 19th. And James Legault rounds out your top 20.
Chris Duffy is going to be starting 21st with Mark Frost after him in 22nd. David Kaufman will be in at 23rd. Then you've got Joseph Evers, P24. Quarter century mark goes to Jeff Williams, and Joel Bergeron will be 26. Andrew Long starts on the inside of the next row in 27th with Robert McNeil in 28th. Randy Lervold, 29th, and Keaton Van Thoff in 30th.
Moving back into the 30s, it's Greg Glouin in 31st, followed by Carl Barchieri, then Anker Bergzona, 33rd, and Jordan Daniels, 34th. Nathan Abalaka will be 35th, followed by Nick Paglia, then Jeffrey Gardner, Will Mungia, Chad Caseon, and Bob Moore round out your top 40.
David Sentel will start 41st, Peter Ritza 42nd, and Swarovs Sengupta in 43rd. Then it's Antonio De Silva starting 44th, and Adam Holland, the last one to sit at time, P45. Stephen Danley is 46, and Gilles Estupinan will be starting last on our 47-car field. Thankfully, it is a big track, so we'll have plenty of space, but we even saw with 21 cars last night that lap traffic became an issue well before the race was over. We're going to watch this start here as the pace car peels off and Dirksen takes control of the fields. He'll now be able to go when he pleases. He's holding them a bit, waiting, and he's going to get them stacked up. Green flag is out, and he goes quite late as they plunge down towards La Source for the first time. Last night, it was clean into this corner, but what about this time as we have many, many more cars, and they're a little bit more competitive here in the sport class. So far, so good, although some cars coming to complete halt at the inside of La Source.
Yeah, big checkups there at that point, but it looks like Kevin Yokel trying to challenge right now on Jason Finch. He was side by side going into La Source, not going to be able to get it done, but a checkup coming down into Eau Rouge puts Rob Neville right into this conversation in that sort of teal plaid machine.
Up and over off of Radion. Look at them fly down the Kimmel Straight. It is a whole lot of cars there that are about to hit the brakes at the end of this long run up the hill. It is very clear for Dirksen, who leads. Oh no, this is what we feared. And I see one car off. I'm sure that is Bergeron. I see 2 or 3 more a little bit farther up the road. Another one pulls off, missing his hood, so it looks like severe damage for at least 4 cars. And that is going to bring out the full course caution, the first time here in Series 11 that we're going to see that.
Yeah, and this was one of those things that you talked about, Joe, that was voted on by the series, that they wanted to bring those full course cautions back if there was an incident that would merit a full course caution. For those unfamiliar with iRacing, normally on road courses, we don't see the full course caution get thrown like that. It tends to just kind of work itself out because drivers are able to tow back down into pit lane. But drivers here in the PCA wanting to add that level of realism and bring it back here tonight.
And I think I've found it. We'll see if the replay can pull this up. But it starts with Andrew Long, who gets tipped by Jeff Williams. Ironically, He runs into Bergeron, who I had mentioned, but Bergeron wound up where he was because he also made slight contact, and that put him in the spot where he could be sort of spun into by that other car. Keaton Van Thoff, I also see getting involved. Long went for quite a ride, unfortunately, almost going on his lid. Chris Duffy looks like he got collected, and I think I see Boccieri's new paint job, unfortunately, severely messed up in that one. Looks like we've got that replay ready. So let's take another look at this, DJ, and see if we can unravel this.
Well, this is coming down into the source. Now, keep your eyes a little bit ahead here, because remember, there was that big stack up that you mentioned. Cars almost coming to a complete stop. That was the 599 machine. That was Mike Sachs that almost came to a complete stop. And now as we watch Andrew Long coming up through the source, this is where things are going to start to be a little bit chaotic. The run down to the hill, everything looks okay. Not seeing too wide coming up Eau Rouge, which is always a good sign. And then this is where it all fires off. Great run here by Andrew. Going to pull in behind the 517, pulls his way to the outside. Slow car in front of him, and a miscommunication there, Joe. That 517 machine just jinking to the outside ever so slightly. That's what caused the contact. That was Jeff Williams moving to the right.
Everybody behind, though, checking up, and I think that prevented it from being a much worse situation. In fact, right now, I only see 3 cars in pit lane. Van Toff, Long, and Lervold. Everybody else has stayed out. I suppose those other drivers who were involved in the incident have decided it's worth trying to make it to the first pit stop, which actually opens up a little bit here because they are doing a couple pace laps. It's not going to be a lot, maybe about a lap early, would you say, DJ?
Yeah, I think that would be about right. I mean, it is going to be a longer pit cycle around here because you are going to be able to save fuel going as you are at about 60 miles an hour behind that safety car, but certainly going to bring things back a little bit more.
So everybody behind the pace car, you can see that is, even though it is requested by the live stewards, it is automated and run by iRacing. Now, they actually can pull it in a little bit early, so if they feel like they're happy with everybody back out and ready to go, they could tell the pace car to come in this lap. We'll see if they do that or if they're going to let it run its usual course here. If so, we're going to wait a little bit because the pace laps do take a bit around the track of this length. So far, Van Thoff has come back out. Lervold has retired the car, unfortunately, and Andrew Long has not taken his spare car. He's taking the regular repair, so he's been stuck in there for almost 4 minutes. I
wonder if that's a situation where he maybe forgot to check the box for fast repair, Joe, as I certainly would think that you'd want to get that done as quickly as possible out on circuit.
Yeah, no doubt. He's already a lap down, so I think you might be right. That's not the sort of situation you typically want here. That, or and maybe he had to take a tow and he couldn't drive the car back, and so he's just having to wait for it to finish that, because that could take 5 minutes or so to find its way back to pit lane by the virtual tow trucks. Meanwhile, we watch the field stacked up. So the good thing is, even though cautions often breed cautions, DJs, this one is going to be a single file restart.
Yeah, it will be single file here. That's probably going to space the field out a little bit more. I doubt we are going to see a situation where we've got that big heavy stack up coming down into the source like we did on the previous time. So that will probably be a big boon and a blessing to a lot of these drivers hoping to avoid an incident. The one problem is for some of these drivers that were hoping to gain a bunch of positions off of the start, they're going to find themselves in a little bit more of a difficult position to be able to gain their way back through.
Oh, I just noticed something, though. I was looking through the entries list, and that's where we can see any penalties that drivers are getting. And Chris Duffy, Ankerberg Zona, and Andrew Long all have meatball flags, along with, it looks like, even Carl Boccieri. So that, I assume that is from that opening wreck, and that means they cannot stay out until the pit window unless these pace laps take significantly long. In which case they might be able to do it because we're only about 3 minutes away from the traditional pit window opening. But they have a total of 3 laps, I think, 3 or 4 laps before they must come in to the pits to repair the car because it has been deemed unsafe by the sim.
Yeah, exactly, and that probably represents a little bit of suspension damage. That represents a little bit of back and forth maybe on the wheels themselves, just something that the car is not going to be able to handle correctly. There's always a little bit of chagrin when you talk about these iRacers that sometimes the car feels like it's able to go, but the meatball flag has been issued, and that's really just sort of a damage threshold that the car has met.
Exactly. Obviously, the danger is nothing physical here in the virtual world, but the sim tries to play it realistic. So if it thinks you're dropping fluids and things like that, it will send you in. I do see Bergzona coming into the pits now, and McNeil also going in. I'm just kind of watching the entry here to see which of those drivers decides to pit in this time, and it looks like those two are mainly it. Boccieri also has it, and there he goes. Well, he second-guessed himself and almost actually blocked the pit entry for a brief moment. Thankfully, he was able to make it in.
Yeah, barely got his way in there at that point. And there you see that fast repair that we talked about. It's just a quick and simple stop down into pit lane. Now, something we should mention here is they will be taking another pit stop over the course of this run. That will be because these cars are set to 50% fuel on a fixed setup. So everybody's driving the same car out here tonight virtually. And with a 50% setup of fuel, that means that you're not going to be able to make it to the end. You're going to have to come back in. So it's not like these drivers that are coming in right now are going to be able to kind of game the system and get a free pit stop out of this.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because it actually works out quite well, though, for these drivers who are pitting under yellow for that spare car. Because normally, under green flag conditions, having to have that extra pit stop, they would lose a ton of time. Here, yes, they're losing the track position, but they're still with the pack, so hopefully for them they'll be losing a lot less.
Yeah, and that is going to be a huge boon to them. They are going to be able to gain that back, but they're going to find themselves in a position where they're going to have to make up those positions naturally, let's say, in terms of racing out on track. So it will be helping them. They're not going to find themselves massively out of contention here, but they are going to find things a little bit more difficult to try to move their way back up in the order just by the sheer number of cars that are going to be in front of them.
I love this. This really shows the variety of systems and setups that drivers will race on. You can see a more traditional desk there in the bottom left. You've got a rig there on the bottom right, and a 4-screen setup in the upper right, and what looks like a 3-screen setup in the upper left. So much like in real life, everybody races with slightly different equipment, even though they're all in the same car out there, and it's a spec series.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody just wants to have those creature comforts, Joe, and that's really what it comes down to. You want to be in a system where you feel comfortable. You want to have everything as put together as you can, and really and truly not have anything that's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's where you're going to run into problems.
So the lights are out on the pace car. We're going to get restarted this time by. It's been kind of shortened from a 40-minute race to just under a 30-minute race the way it's going here. So it will be much more of a sprint than it already was. And like we said, this will change some of the pit window. We could see drivers going extremely late into this, maybe the last couple laps before they finally pit in, but we'll see who does what and what this will do to the fuel mileage once we get the green flag any moment now. Dirksen will still have control of the field. In fact, the top 4 are still where they gridded.
Yeah, so that's going to be it, and I'm going to be interested to see what Dirksen decides to do. He held up the field for a long time off of that last start. Maybe going to try to go a little bit earlier this time, keep everybody on their toes.
Exactly. It's not that long of a straight down into La Source, so shouldn't be too concerned about someone pulling a slipstream as long as he gets a decent jump over his rivals. Here we go. Pace car getting ready to duck in out of the bus stop chicane. Dirksen has had some of the time eaten up here by this full course yellow. But what about the rest of the race? Can he get away from the slipstream that might come to dominate this race? He's got control of the fields. He's going to wait for it quite a while once again, and the green flag is out. He does wait all the way until he gets the manual green from Barney, and that allows Jason Finch to be right on top of him as they come down into the braking of the source. Once again, going 3 wide at the front of the field, but they get through clean.
And I'm seeing a lot of aggression here out of Rob Neville. He is really pushing that car forward as much as possible and putting pressure on the back of Kevin Yokel. Going to fall back a little bit as the rest of the field now coming through the source in single file order.
Yep, everybody was still having to go through the bus stop, so it looks like that spread them out pretty well, and that means we get a bit of a cleaner start this time through. But look at the front there. Battle for the lead sees Jason Finch once again threatening on Dirksen, this time down into Lacombe, who goes to the inside. Dirksen fends him off, but Finch is obviously making him feel pressure.
Yeah, and that's what Finch needs to do here at this point. He doesn't need to go for the move. He doesn't need to try to jump his way forward. He just needs to put pressure onto the back of Dirksen and make him know he's there. Meanwhile, a little bit of a battle farther back down in the field. Jarawala right now. Oh, with cars spun around. Krutzler coming up behind Jarawala.
That was Komatz, who was off the side of the road. Not sure what happened. We got another car spun in front of them off the racing line. Thankfully, Jarawala still fending off Krutzler just behind him. As we come down through No Name now, we jump to the number 5 of Dirksen. Excuse me, this is through Puhan, as he is up ahead of that group. And towards Fanny's, he's put himself a few more car lengths away from Finch.
Yeah, he's doing a good job, by the way. That other car that we saw spun around in Bruxelles, that is going to be Mark Lacombe. Very heads up there for him. He just held the brakes and stayed out of the way, although that'll put him well down the order.
Indeed, so not what you want to have happen at the start of this race. You got a mountain to climb from here. So we watch that battle for 19th now with Mike Sachs, who sits behind Joseph Evers, and Mark Frost looks like he's losing a little bit of time on them, unfortunately, although Evers in front of him. Look how close he is to the back of Frost.
Yeah, Evers really putting some good pressure there. He's going to have a little bit of a poke to the inside going down into Blanchimont. That's not going to work. Look at that send for Finch down into the bus stop.
And they actually come together. He's not going to take the spot. Dirksen stays in front. That slows up those behind them. Yokel versus Neville now for 3rd place, and slow off the corner. Is there damage on Finch?
I think there's got to be probably some left side damage on that 356. He's going to get swallowed up by Yokel and Neville down into La Source.
Neville manages to get ahead, but it's a drag race from there. Someone's going to have to give up the ghost up into Eau Rouge. Which of it is it going to be? Jason Finch has a front row seat. It's going to be Yokel.
Yeah, and that's going to back off Yokel a little bit there, and he's going to lose some of that momentum coming up and over the hill, probably lose the opportunity to be able to attack Robert Neville going up and over. And now look at this, a battle side by side. I think that's Finch and Elizondo going at it.
Yeah, Jason Finch, unfortunately, might get a penalty for that as well with that contact. Elizondo manages to get by. Finch looking like the car is struggling, and I don't see a black and orange flag, so he doesn't have forced repairs. Also, Jeff Williams has been given a black flag.
Oh, a couple drivers looking like they're off. Peter Yerksa in the background I'm seeing is getting sent down through the field, so that's not going to be good for him. But we keep our eyes on this battle between Finch right now as we've got another yellow flag out on the surface.
Indeed. Avukala, I think a part of that start of the wreck. Oh, Jeff Williams, ironically, who was given that black flag, was the one that kicks this one off in the 517, it appears, who lost control of the car. Up and over the crest of Radion. So for the 2nd time, we will slow it up. And now, honestly, this might make things to the point where drivers could go to the finish of the race without a pit stop. I'm not sure, but we'll find out with it extending it so far into 29 minutes left to go that first time. This is what happens to Williams. The rear kicks out. And as we've seen even in real life, when a car loses control through Eau Rouge, there's no small accidents.
No, there really isn't there, and that's a very violent snap and very unpredictable. I think the car probably, he took it at just slightly the wrong angle coming up and over the hill, and I've got to imagine that the car bottomed out there ever so slightly, and that's what made that rear end violently break away on him there like that.
Wow, I wasn't too shocked that we got a full course yellow here for one of the races, but I didn't expect any of them to have two in the same race. Bit unfortunate that we're going to get slowed down twice, but this will back everybody up, and it means that things should remain extremely close all the way, or close to the end of the race, as drivers will have little chance to try and spread out from one another. There you can see the pace car now getting ready to pick up Dirksen and take him around. Wow. So even more cars now having to take repairs to Silva. I see Danley in there. Williams, obviously. Keaton Van Thoff is back in again, it looks like, for some reason. Not sure if he was caught up in it. And Abu Halka is got himself in pit lane also, getting a few repairs. Well then, this has certainly been a bit of a wild one to start off, DJ.
Yeah, a little bit crazier than the challenge class that we saw last night. And I think that's partially because of the 47 car count that we've got at this point. You get this many cars out on the track, and you just increase the opportunity for a problem. And then compounded with that, just all the other cars, if there's a problem in front of you, you've got no way to get around it. And that is absolutely what's happening.
So I'm checking to see. They did shorten the pacing by 1 lap last time, so maybe we'll see the same thing this time through. If they want to get this going at a decent time. We're already getting close to the halfway point of this race. As it stands now, as the pace car went by, the lights are still on currently, since it only just picked it up this time through. As you see, the cars work their way up and across Malmedy and then down the hill. That is plunging into Rivage. You can see how much elevation change there is there. As we looked over the crest, the stands were at the same eye level as the cars there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, pretty crazy there to be able to watch and take a hold on that here, as they're going to bring their way back around right now. Dirksen continuing to lead. That's going to be good for Dirksen. I'm impressed with what I'm seeing from him at this point. What I'm a little bit surprised about here at this point is the fact that Jason Finch hasn't decided to dive down into pit lane, Joe. Remember, we saw some damage there on Finch's car potentially, and it looked like he was much slower and maybe just finding himself a little bit hurting as a result of it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I guess at this point you might as well try and stay out. This is what caused the damage, as we're going to ride on board with Finch. I had a chance to go back and look. I think he just misses his brake marker here.
Comes down into it. Yeah, that really and truly does look like he just missed his brake marker. I mean, he would not have made that corner had it not been for contact there with Dirksen. And that's not the kind of move that we expect here in the PCA. Let's watch this again from Dirksen's perspective. You can see where he starts to decelerate, and then just so much later there for Finch, and massive rubbing on each other there. You know, Joe, looking at that car for Finch, I don't think that there's a problem on it. I think Finch just got to his head a little bit. I think after a mistake like that, if we're assuming that's what it was, that he missed his braking marker, he just kind of got put on the back foot and kind of got caught up in his own head a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of think the same thing. It was a bit strange to see him going so slow. And to not see a meatball flag, I was a bit confused to see him dropping spot after spot there. That means that Neville's up to second, Yokel's into third, and Elizondo manages to promote himself into fourth here. Our biggest mover so far, though, I believe is Gilles Estupinian in the 47. 19 positions gained. He started from dead last on the field, failed to set a time, and is just, I would wager, mostly stayed out of trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, in a race like this that we've seen at this point, that's exactly the kind of run you need to have. If you're able to just keep your car on the black stuff, not get involved in incidents, you're going to be able to bring your way up through the order, and that is absolutely brilliant stuff here for Stupinin, doing a really good job. Okay, so as they head around for at least a second lap here behind the pace car, we'll see if they tell it to come on in after this one. I suspect they will.
honestly. The lights are still on right now, but they can make that call at any time before they get to the pit entry a lap from now, essentially. But we're already past the 20-minute mark. And as I was saying earlier, this could likely mean that drivers can actually get to the finish without needing a pit stop. And now I have to see if there's anything in the rules that drivers must take a pit stop by the rules, or if it is just because of the limited fuel that they have been forced to take a pit stop, because I'm not sure if that's actually in there that you're required to at least stop once.
That's a good question, Joe. I'm not sure if that is in the rules there about that. We'll have to check with some of our team behind the scenes to make sure about it. But if there is not a mandatory pit stop, I think you're right. I think we're going to be okay here, and these drivers should be able to make it to the end.
So we are getting some clarification on at least one rule, that they will not have another full-course yellow after this. If there are two and they're past the halfway point, they will not have a third one in the race. And there you can see lights are off on the pace car. We are going green next time by.
All right, so drivers here are going to probably take a little bit of time, maybe put their heat into the tires at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of weaving. It's only 65 degrees Fahrenheit out on the track right now. That's pretty cold, especially by iRacing standards here. So these tires have gone through some heat cycles. They're going to be easier to get up to temperature, but they're going to be pretty cold here from running around behind this safety car.
That's a very good point on this one, as even though this is a time-limited race, so we don't have to worry about the sun going down by the end of the race. The sun going down means that if you're not at racing speed, you're going to be experiencing a bit of slipperiness by the time they get back to that start line. Just got clarification from the race control. Drivers are not required to pit in the race. It is only based on if you have the fuel to get to the end. So anybody who's been able to save from here and has been savvy enough to do so could try to get sneaky. Keep an eye out for that. This is an extra twist.
Yeah, very interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised here if there were some cagey drivers at the front of the field that maybe were lifting and coasting quite a lot during this run, maybe keeping an eye on that fuel for this in mind. And this could become a bigger strategic race than we thought it would be.
And let's remember that it's quite a bit of time lost in the pit lane here for that refuel. So even if you have to slow down by a good bit of pace, you could still wind up making up a lot of positions. So watch out for drivers trying to slow up a little bit or ride in behind their rivals to see if they can lift and coast in the slipstream ahead of them. Coming out through Blanchimont, and it hasn't been Blanchimont that has been the place that has captured a lot of cars here today. It is up and over Radillon, where we have seen at least two incidents. One as drivers tangle with one another where a driver just completely lost control. Let's see how the restart goes here, as the pace car is getting ready to dive off, and Dirksen once again will have the ability to kick this off. Both times he started about the same time. Almost cost him last time as Finch was right behind him. Here we go. Waiting patiently, and there it is. Green flag is out. Dirksen much farther away this time from Yokel than he was from Finch before. Looks like Kevin's not going to be able to get the jump on him. Somebody pulls off to the side there in the background. Not sure what's going on with that as we come down into La Source. A little bit of too wide, a little bit more orderly this time.
Yeah, that was Carbone and Curtis Crummell there getting a little bit side by side. I'm not sure who that is that's falling down through the order in the paint machine, looking down through it right now. I think that may be Abaulika. That could be a lap down. That's the only thing I can think of there, and just safely getting out of the way. But it looks like everybody is up and over the crest here at this point. Little bit of back and forth here as we've got some side by side between Finch and Elizondo once again.
Yeah, Elizondo must have been very slow off the corner because Finch blasted past him, and now Carbone is going to try to go by, but he can't quite get it completely done. There's still wheel to wheel coming through Malmedy, and Elizondo is going to be able to fend him off for now, but a switch back from Carbone puts him down the inside of Rivage now too.
All right, he is going to try to hold on to a good run there by Elizondo. And here he comes down in it. There we see the number 16 of Carbone trying to fight back. He's got the run around the outside.
Oh, he has a little bit of a slip up off of No Name. He gathers it up in time. Elizondo still tight behind him, but now Crummel, Gibson, Costas are all catching up. In fact, Costas takes a big look up the inside. Gibson bails on the corner to give him space, and that loses him one, maybe two, because Ken Eskridge is now closing in behind. They're going to go door to door down into Fanyes, round the outside for Ken Eskridge. He takes 8th position. Nice move by him. Watching the lead, Dirksen about a second ahead of Kevin Yokel right now, with Jason Finch seeing if he can make up for his mistake earlier on. Have not seen a penalty for him quite yet, but we'll see if the stewards do deem it worthy of a penalty, since he didn't take the position, but he did cause car contact, and they tend to look rather dimly on that in this one. But he's trying to make hay while the sun shines in case he doesn't get a black flag on this one. Looking at the battle for 25th there as well, a little bit farther down. That's Bob Moore trying to chase on Carl Boccieri. Heading up through Blanchimont. Boccieri a little too far back. He has taken his spare car and is actually up 8 positions from where he started this race. So he's made good on what looked like it wasn't going to be a good day for him. Jeff Williams was also given a second black flag in this race. My goodness. What a miserable day it's been for Jeff Williams, unfortunately, on this race. The lead back down to about 0.8 of a second. Yokel was able to gain a little bit, but not a lot. Checking a little farther back into 30th now there on the top of your screen. Behind the 30th place car is Adam Holland. That is Lacombe and Andrew Long, who are racing side by side for P31 down into Eau Rouge, and it looks like Lacombe is going to be able to take that one away. No change up at the top, though. Dirksen still leads Yokel, still leads Finch, and they're running away from Carbone, so it looks like that was important for Finch to be able to get ahead of Anthony and Elizondo there, to keep himself out of range and give himself a shot at the podium. Started this on the front row and obviously lost a number of positions with his little send there. But we've got a couple more black flags. Keaton Van Thoff was black flagged, and David Sintel also was black flagged. So a couple more drivers on the naughty list, unfortunately, for our race control. Now 0.3 of a second between Finch and Yokel. He continues to apply plenty of pressure to the number 42, but Dirksen has stretched it up to about 1.1 seconds now. He is starting to clear himself from that battle. That could be important, especially if Finch is quick enough that he can start to chase down the number 5. He knows he needs to put some distance between himself and Jason. Battle for 18th position, or 27th rather, here on screen. This is Chris Duffy, and he is chasing on Robert McNeil. He's also got Estupinian just behind him, who's still up 19. I think he's still our hardest charger in this race right now. Yes, he is. I can confirm that. The number 47 been doing a fantastic job in this one, even if he wasn't able to get a clean one in the qualifying itself. As we check out 8th place as well, Ken Eskridge is at gained 1, which seems very minuscule compared to what we were just talking about. Ahead of him, Costas up 3 in this race. Christopher starting from P10, chasing on Curtis Crummel right now, behind him by about a half a second. So as we continue to watch that lead battle on your bottom screen, we've been keeping an eye on that one. It seems like Finch has been frustratingly close, just can't seem to get within attacking range, unfortunately. Just has been kind of stuck behind, although he's making sure to keep him honest. A little bit farther down in 16th, Mike Sachs finds himself being approached by Joseph Evers. He had a 2:20.7 that last lap to Joseph Evers. Sachs with an equal 2:20.7. Can't quite get as close as he might want. Although if we look ahead of them, Jarawala, who we were covering earlier, is starting to see if he can maybe get some sweat out of Patrick Gill. There, that is him just in front. This is the battle for 13th, plunging down into Puhan. Patrick Gill, nice and tidy to the apex, stretching it out a little bit farther to the curb on the outside of Puhan, and that gets himself some distance from Rex. Certainly is going to try and hold on to him here and see if he can get a mistake out of that car. So we now look at 17th once again. Joseph Evers just behind Mike Sachs. Mike Sachs taking it out onto the AstroTurf there through Stavelo. Now flying out of Stavelo 2 and towards Blanchimont. This is one of the longest acceleration zones, but they can't take it flat out. Coming through the left-hander of Blanchimont. Watch here as they approach it. These GT3 cars are mighty fast, but they're going to see a lot of disrupted air, and that makes it difficult for Joseph Evers. He cannot stay close enough to Mike Sachs, so he is going to have to sit patiently behind, at least for now. In the meantime, you can see Jarawala just in front of them once again, getting very tight to the back of Patrick Gill. This could be a pass here coming up into La Source. He seems to think so too. Rex pokes his nose, but Patrick Gill chops down to the apex. He knows that that car is not side by side, and he's good for now. Every once in a while, but turn my eyes down to Finch there. And he has been getting very close, as you can see here now. Now he's got the slipstream. I don't know if he's got enough straight, though. He's going to show himself. And surely Yoko's going to see it in the mirrors, but he doesn't take the bait. He stays on the racing line. Jason Finch will have to try again later. We're already down to 7 minutes left to go in this race. With all the caution flag laps, it has found itself becoming an extreme sprint here, this one. We're only on lap 11 of this race. Oh no, Patrick Gill's had a problem farther back in the 111 car. There he is at Lacombe. Off the circuit. Didn't see quite what caused this, but we know that he was fighting with Jarawala, so I wonder if that was related between the two of them. In the meantime, we come back to our leaders. Oh, it's very close now. Finch now within 1/10 of a second on Yokel as he approaches down into Fanyes. He loses a little bit of time, so it's back up to about 3/10 of a second. Carbone is watching from behind them, but he has to make up about a second to catch up to them. All it takes is a battle through a couple corners, and he could become a major factor for these two and snatch up a podium finish. Flying off the corner, we're going to switch over to a replay, and oh, they're side by side. That doesn't look like a good sign. So Gill with the inside. And oh, they do make contact. That spins Gill around, and he gets an extra hit. Didn't quite see who that was exactly, but unfortunately, that is going to send him to the back with quite a bit of damage. And I think, yeah, that was with the number 7, it looks like. So that was Rex Jarawala that spun him. So that is being investigated by Race Control. Battle for 11th on your screen. Ward Preston chased by James Martin down into La Source, trying to see if they can get to the top 10, which would be Nick Whitehill ahead of them by about 2 seconds. Martin's going to have to try and pass Preston first if he wants to manage to do that. Ooh, it's close once again here for Finch. And we've jumped on board with Whitehill. He's going to get a good run coming down the Kemmel straight. We once again take a look at that second camera with Finch. Nothing doing. He got close though. And oh man, he is very tight to him coming off the corner. But once again, he seems to lose a little bit of time. Oh, and we've had a wreck on the Kemmel straight. Mike Sachs and David Kaufman. I think Sachs was the one that made the secondary contact with Gill before, but this was a different incident there. That is wild. Don't usually see a wreck on a straight quite like that. It looks like we've got a replay of this incident. Oh, he thought there was room to the inside, and it turned out Sachs thought that there wasn't and covered him off a little bit late. The two came together, unfortunately, causing some severe damage for Mike Sachs for sure. Back up to the battle for P2. Yokel versus Finch. Amazingly, despite the fighting that they've had, although they haven't had a lot of side-by-side, if any at all, up to this point, they're still at about 1.2 seconds behind Dirksen. They haven't lost a whole lot to our leader. And there you can see there's the battle for, I know it says battle for third, but this is battle for P2 right now between Yokel and Finch. So this is pretty much directly behind Dirksen up at the front. They're going to come to the line and get the 2 to go signal here. David Kaufman was given a black flag, it looks like. And Sachs has just announced that he's going to come in and take repairs for the damage that he experienced. That was a weak exit for Jason Finch coming off of Blanchimont, or excuse me, off of bus stop, and finds himself now having to make up a bit of that lost time, with Carbone gaining about 0.2. He's down to 0.8 of a second now, jumping a little bit behind them. We've got the battle for 10th place. So I said White Hill had to be caught. It wasn't by Martin, it's by Preston. Excuse me, no, it's Gibson actually that's been caught by White Hill. So this is for 9th place. And White Hill's got a very good run. Here we go. Oh, is up at the top. There's a look from Finch. I think he's a little too far back though. And yeah, he's not going to be able to do it. But Preston doesn't, or White Hill doesn't go for the move, rather, on Gibson, interestingly. He's going to sit behind him. Maybe he is thinking about that fuel and feels like it's close. Back up to Finch once more. Yokel has been soaking up this pressure. Got to give a lot of credit to that number 42, the way that he has been handling this race up to this point. Because certainly it takes a lot to have a driver breathing down your neck like that and not fall victim to it, but he's got to make it for at least another lap and a half. And Finch has been much closer these last couple laps. In fact, he's regained the time that he lost out of the final turn already. Oh, it's a good run. Does he try it in his Stavolo? It's an unusual place for a pass, and no. He decides he doesn't quite have enough of it up into the right-hander. Now they exit off of Stavolo 2, blasting towards Blanchimont. It's getting ever closer to Carbone as well. He's cut it down to 0.6 of a second. Will he make this ever more complicated for the pair of them to figure out who is going to be second and who is going to be third? Through Blanchimont, just can't stay with it. Jason backs out slightly. Looking a little farther down at 7th place. Costas versus Eskridge and Gibson. I guess you could put White Hill into that one too. And nobody's going to change position there in that group, although they certainly had a few looks, especially from Eskridge on Costas. Getting word from race control that there are two potential post-race penalties, but they need to review them, so they need more time to go over them. So there are 2 drivers, I haven't been told which 2, are going to have incidents reviewed. So we'll see what is decided on that. But unfortunately, I won't be able to give you the update here during the broadcast. 30 seconds left, white flag lap. So it is 1 to go. And Dirksen is still a mere 1 second ahead of Yokel. But Kevin has been less concerned about that win, I think. He's been much more concerned about that number 356 behind him, who's been trying to make up for his poor start to this race. And in fact, look at that. That orange and blue 16, that is Carbone. He has made it up to the back of him. If there is an attack from Finch and it goes awry, he is suddenly vulnerable to Anthony. Well then, this is going to get fascinating. They fly down into Wuhan. Dirksen is not out of it. Like I said, a 1 second margin is not entirely comfortable this late into the race. He's got to be flawless out there. Behind him, Carbone starting to become more of a threat to Jason. The 356 has to go from attack to defense potentially here, depending on the run that Anthony gets coming out of Stavolo. Let's see what happens. This is going to be decisive as they fly off the second apex, and it looks like Finch is a little bit better as he starts to approach on Jokel Dirksen. Also lost about 3/10 and is continuing to lose there. Oh my goodness. Dirksen could find himself in trouble if there's a send from Jokel down into the final corner. We watch from on board the leader as Kevin sizes him up, but he's not quite there. Finch goes defensive as well on Carbone. As they come to the line, Dirksen is going to take the win for the sport class here in Event 1. Jokel second, Finch third, Carbone in fourth, and Elizondo had caught them. The top 5 were separated by only 2 seconds at the line. That was an incredibly close race. The cautions obviously helped that to a degree, but holy cow. The top 5 all within a shout of the win. As you can see, it's still tight down to the mid-pack as well, streaming across the finish line. In fact, a bit of side-by-side between Mungia and Casion. Looks like Casion is going to be able to take that one. Oh, and Lacombe is slow. I'm not sure why, but Mark Lacombe is drifting to a stop, and it looks to me like he ran out of fuel, which is a bit strange. Nobody else seems to be having that problem. He must have been very greedy on the throttle. We have a couple more cars to cross. Looks like about 42. Well, at 41, I suppose, we'll finish the race because Lacombe is going to be all of about 20 feet shy, unfortunately. That is absolutely gut-wrenching for him. But it looks like that is everyone now. So Derek Dirksen is your winner for this race, with Kevin Jokel in second and Jason Finch in third. With the finish in fourth going to Carbone, Elizondo was P5 and Curtis Crummell in at 6. Both of those drivers, same spot that they started. Seventh goes to Costas with Eskridge in P8 and Gibson at 9th, and Whitehill will round out your top 10. Then it's going to be Ward Preston, who finishes 11th, James Martin P12, and Rex Jarawala will be 13th. David Krutzler P14 was followed by Joseph Evers in the 15th spot. Mark Frost was P16 and James Legault 17th. Jordan Daniels wound up 16th. Jeffrey Gardner, 18 positions gained, although he fell short of the Hard Chargers award there, 19th, and Greg Lewin winds up 20th. The rest of your fields on to 47th place, scrolling on through. Oof, what a race we had there on this one. Yes, it got interrupted a couple times, but certainly, much like to see in oval racing, those cautions bunched everything up and gave us an exciting finish to this event. Join us when we come back next Wednesday night, January 10th, for the club class. Also, again, here at Spa. A big thank you goes out to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as a huge thanks to our team tonight, DJ, Brian, Cameron, and Dougie. Also, thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak. I'll see you on the track.